So OneNote, and the reason I'm calling it OneNote Refresh is really we're talking just kind of about all the different changes that are coming. And so we'll go through a couple of changes, and then we'll also go through some features, some newly released features, and just some other features that I really like. So thanks for joining everyone today. I hope you get something out of this. If nothing else, learn maybe a new tip or trick that you can bring with you into your daily OneNote usage, or maybe even try using OneNote if you're not currently using it at the moment. For those of you that may not know who I am, my name is Mickie Brewer, and I'm the founder and owner of HT Consulting. So we do consulting, training, building solutions, all different kinds of things. And you can email me if you have questions or want more clarification around anything that I discussed today. You can also follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. My background, just to give you a little bit about myself and where I come from, like many of us in the community, I started within SharePoint for, over 10 years ago. It's been now. And when Microsoft 365 came on the market, it was kind of just one of those natural, skills that I brought into my toolbox. And I really just loved it ever since when it comes to, SharePoint, obviously being kind of a baby of mine, my favorite app, but Teams, OneNote, like we're going to be talking about today, and all of the other apps. OneNote does have a special place in my heart because I actually can honestly tell you that I use OneNote both personally and professionally. I probably actually open my OneNote in some version on any of my devices every day. I probably almost look at it as much, if not some days more, than I open my email. But that's just me. You don't have to strive to get to my my amount of usage. But it was a really huge step for me in becoming a paperless. And so I'm sitting here at my desk and I'm looking around, and I have a check that I need to mobilely deposit, and a pen, and that's really the only pieces of paper that I have on my desk at all, because everything else I do pretty much through OneNote, and that mobile deposit obviously will be eventually digitized in two fashions, both deposit but also for records management and stuff too. So my just personal journey through OneNote. It did take probably about a year to get to the level of paperless that my household, because yes, I dragged my husband kicking and screaming through most of it, but it's really it's it's been nice when we have to move or have to find something. It's sometimes so much easier to find digital documents than it is to weed your way through paper and paper cuts. So I'm excited for today's content. If you have any questions or anything like that, you can feel free to put those in the chat throughout today's session. And you can also come off mute. I have no problem with you guys asking questions from that perspective either. So just as we go along, don't forget to ask those questions as you think of them. But if you are familiar with Microsoft 365, then you may have already noticed how frequent things change. And that's true in, Teams, SharePoint, OneNote, all the Office apps, and, all the other apps around. New features, layout changes, and even more. Microsoft has a weekly release schedule for this, but don't worry, that doesn't necessarily impact users that frequently. But I would probably say within every month or two, you're going to see something roll out that will affect you as just a basic end user. All the other releases and things like that happen are can happen from the back end side of things where your IT department is dealing with them, and then obviously all the way through just that front end side. What that means for you from just a general user's perspective is it can obviously mean that you need to figure out some way of keeping up to date with all these changes. My favorite one is just the Twitter MS OneNote I follow that. It's Microsoft. And so they push out new things that come. And actually, every single app has their own Twitter handle. So I follow all of those. Even when Viva came out, I now follow that as well. So you can follow on Twitter. What's cool about Twitter, obviously, as I'm sure you're familiar with, is you get a notification on your phone when someone that you follow posts something. So that's really a nice little automation for any updates. And then the other thing that you can do, if you haven't noticed it yet, or maybe it hasn't necessarily released, it will be coming if it hasn't been done yet. But in the top right-hand corner, whenever you open Word or OneNote or Excel or PowerPoint or whatever, you're actually going to see the little announcement icon. And that will open a panel that's telling you, what releases have been done and what's coming. So that's another really kind of in the moment option for you to see what's going on. When you open Excel, you trying to figure out where this new feature came from or what it does, then you can open that panel and it should give you some insight into that. When you're in Microsoft Teams, there it's actually just a / what's new that you can type into the search box, and it will also give you that list of all the new features that roll out with Teams. Teams is one of our baby apps. It's still kind of in the infant stages, or maybe it's a teenager by now, since COVID a couple of years kind of pushed it out of the nest a little bit. But there's still a lot of changings that happen within Teams, so definitely want to keep up with that. So, or, obviously your last option is to join these webinars and find out what's happening through our great Microsoft community. Sharon, Jonathan, all of us, and many, many more people push out articles and webinars and things like that with all those updates. So a lot of them are on Twitter as well. So the first change that we're going to talk about is something that I'm actually very excited for, because I feel like it makes more sense when you're talking about the integration between the applications within inside Teams, and that is the disappearance, I guess, of the wiki tab. So raise your hand if any of you guys use Microsoft Teams. Anybody on here use Microsoft Teams currently? Okay, we've got definitely quite a few of you. So hopefully you're familiar with when you actually create a new channel inside Teams. You used to get 3 tabs, the post tab, the files tab, and then you get this other tab called wiki. Is there anyone here on the call that uses wiki? Whether you like it or not, anyone use the wiki tab?
We keep getting new wikis started as if they're going to be the next best thing, and then we don't keep them up.
Yeah. That's actually a story I've heard quite often, so you're not alone in that.
We have one that we actually use.
You do?
Yep.
Wow. I never got on board with wiki personally. My biggest thing about the wiki is that it wasn't searchable. So it wasn't a recognized file type within Microsoft. So when you search for content using the search box in Teams, wiki wasn't. You couldn't search for it. So to have a knowledge document or some type of note document not be a searchable function, didn't really quite make sense to me. So I don't know about some of you others that did not use wiki, but I pretty much created a channel and it almost became a habit to have to go in and a second step and remove that tab. But lo and behold, if you haven't actually realized it already, haven't seen it, because by the end of this month, it will be available, to what they call standard release or general release. Like I just created a channel last week and I only got 2 tabs. So only posts and files will now be those default tabs whenever you create a new channel, which you can still use wiki if you want to. You can still add a wiki tab. But what I recommend, and obviously the theme of today's topic, is the OneNote. So if you're needing that kind of note-taking application within your team's channels, try, instead of the wiki, try using OneNote. Obviously, OneNote has a lot more functionality than I think Wiki provides. Plus, it's searchable. So all those notes that you take, all those knowledge documents that you might be creating for your team or for your company, when you search for text within the search box, you'll actually find it within OneNote. So that, to me, is a huge component when it comes to user adoption. Why would I be using something if I can't search for it? But so that's one big change. Anybody on here already see that or recognize that when the last time they created a channel? Anybody come across that already? Okay. Well, it's coming and it's proposed to be finished by the end of this month. So that's super exciting. Like I said, for me, it's one of my pet peeves is having to always delete that tab. So. All right. And then go ahead and that didn't play automatically, but so this is just kind of the steps that I wanted to show you as far as what I used to have to do when removing the wiki tab. But it also gives you the steps on how to add a OneNote instead. So hopefully you won't have to do that step one, here fairly soon within the next couple weeks. Sorry, my earbuds keep falling out of my ears. But what you will have to do if you are wanting some type of note taking, whether it's OneNote or Wiki or whatever else, you will have to add in that third tab to your channels. Now, not in my experience, not every channel needs a notes tab. And so I think that was another possible, thought from Microsoft and the community. There are some channels that are more announcement based or more instruction based, not as collaborative or, team oriented. And so not every channel needs that notes. But when you do need the notes, there is a way that you can add the OneNote in its place and not have to use the wiki to that extent. All right. Why is not moving forward? There we go. Okay. So now that we are talking about OneNote and kind of leaving Teams, because this is not about Teams, which I know a lot of webinars recently have been about Teams, but I want to give you a little history about our next announcement, because I feel like this is almost kind of had, this is the big impact. I know that it's going to impact me, and I'm sure it's going to impact most of you guys in some way or another. But the big announcement is that there's going to be moving to a single version of OneNote. And for those of you that may not understand that term, I've been using, OneNote for years. It was released back in, I believe, 2003. Is when OneNote was first released. And I've been using OneNote probably for almost that long. But in 2018, Microsoft announced what was called a UWP, or Universal Windows Platform version. I'm not going to get into the technical of what all that means. What it really just meant in this scenario is that they created a whole new version of OneNote for Windows 10. And it's specific to Windows 10. And so what happened is we had our Windows 10 version, and then some of us still had our 2016 version, or even 2013 version if you were still, back in that stage. And so soon after this decision was made, they mentioned that to, stop using 2016 and move over to Windows 10, which, a very good Kool-Aid drinker here for the Microsoft, I did. And there were some things that were cool about Windows 10 version. And then there were definitely a lot of features that were missing, especially within that first year. So, I mean, just so many different things that I grew to almost use, on a regular basis that weren't available in the Windows 10 version. and I just kind of stuck with it. And I did have to install the old 2016 version on my machine for temporarily, just in case those certain things that I needed to, go back and do in 2016. But as more and more time came, those missing features just start to show up. So that was kind of nice. But even today, there's still, I would feel like, a couple of big benefits of OneNote that are not available in the Windows 10 version. Okay. But it wasn't all one-sided with that Windows 10. There is actually some features that aren't available in the 2016 version. And so when we go in through some of the tips and features that we're going to talk about later, I've given you guys a table that kind of shows you, which versions have what. And in the one pager that I've created for you guys, it'll give you a few more options as well. So there is some benefit to the Windows 10 version. The sync, I feel like, was better. It was more powerful. There was dictation in there and things like that. So it wasn't just all one-sided. But in late 2019, Microsoft says that they're going to extend their support of 2016 and the Windows 10 version through 2025. And which for me, it's kind of frustrating because I still am going to have two versions on my computer because there's certain things that Windows 10 can do and certain things that 2016 can do. And in what I do, I kind of need both. So, excuse me. This is kind of, if you're wondering which version you have, the icon actually is the one that's on the left. So the icon has now synced together this year and kind of merged into one icon. So even though the icon there on the right-hand side is the older icon, what you will see now, and they've already started to make some changes into this single version. And for this purpose, the OneNote, or as what we've previously called OneNote 2016, I'm going to just call OneNote from now on throughout this session. And then if I'm talking about the OneNote for Windows 10, I'm just going to refer to it as the Windows 10, just so we can say. So OneNote is going to ultimately be the future of OneNote, the one single version. And then Windows 10 is what I'm going to refer to as the OneNote for Windows 10 app. But what's going to happen over time, and you can see that, for instance, the logo, if you have both of them loaded onto your computer, their logo is identical when it comes to which version you're in. You actually have to open the version or hover over the version in order to see whether it says OneNote for Windows 10 or whether it just says OneNote. So the first step was they actually took the year 2016 out of the equation. It's no longer year dependent. It's just called OneNote. That's going to be the future of OneNote. And so OneNote for Windows 10 will eventually be kind of hopefully merged and gobbled up by the OneNote app. And so the icon changed, the year went away, and then eventually it should be by the end of, I think they've said actually by the end of this year, it should be kind of a single app, or most of the functions available in both apps should just be available in the one app. So hopefully by the end of this year, we can, for those of us that have both installed, like some of you mentioned here in the chat, you have both of them installed. Hopefully by the end of this year, we'll only have to have one installed in there. So this is what that one install, the logo looks like, and it's just going to be called OneNote from here on out. And so that was all announced just actually last year, saying that by the end of 2022, actually the last quarter of 2022, the big changes would be made. So anybody heard of this change already, or have, I know some of you probably have here on the phone, but anybody excited about this? I am. I don't want to have two versions on my computer anymore. Yep. I can see that some of you definitely All right, so this next slide, it's not meant to be read. Okay, and so you're going to get a copy of these slides. Really, the purpose of these slides is that there's a lot of resources and questions for those of you that may have it, especially if you're in an IT role and you're actually thinking about like, what does this look like for my users and how do I roll this out and what do they need to do and all that kind of stuff. What it comes down to it is if you have the Windows 10 version, you will get an invite from Microsoft when it's time for you to quote unquote update or, go to the next version, and it will just invite you to upgrade to the new OneNote version when your computer is ready to accept that that upgrade. If you're currently using what we previously knew as OneNote 2016, there's really nothing you need to do. Just making sure that your computer and your OneNote or your Office apps just stay up to date. And there's links and stuff inside this article that Microsoft produced that you'll get a copy of these slides and a copy of this link that you can go out. And if you don't know how to keep your Office apps update, there's links on how to do that. So really, you'll get an invite, you'll get direction from Microsoft from, just in your email and from your computer in general. And if you're already using the OneNote of the future, there's really nothing for you to do besides just watching all the new features come in as they are released. So, are there any questions about this update from anybody that we have on the call today? Yes, Tandy, that is one of the articles. Thank you for putting that link in the chat. Thanks, Joe. No questions at this point? Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on to kind of like tips or features that are here in OneNote. Some of them, like I mentioned before, are only available in one version versus the other. Some of them are available in both, but we'll discuss that as we go along. And it was personally with OneNote and really any of the apps that you talk about within Microsoft 365, it's always hard for me to narrow down what features I want to share or what tips to kind of help you work with these apps on a day-to-day basis to get the most out of them and to make your job easier. Really, that's kind of the purpose of these applications, is to help your own productivity and your team's productivity. So I've tried to narrow them down as best as I can. I even threw in, like I said, mentioned before, I'm going to send out a one-pager for you guys with a couple more that I just felt like we may not have time to cover in today's session. But what we're going to be talking about are really the two versions, like I mentioned before, of OneNote. This table, though, if you haven't noticed, actually includes a third version of OneNote. It's not technically a version, it's just the lighter version of OneNote in the browser. But I wanted to make sure that you kind of understood that the browser version can be light and may not necessarily have all these functionalities that we're talking about today. So you will have to, if you want to do some tagging, custom tags or something like that, for instance, you'd have to open the OneNote in one of the desktop versions, whether it's OneNote or Windows 10. And then there's actually a fourth version. Really not here to confuse you guys, but there's the mobile app. So is there anyone on here, raise your hand, that uses the mobile app for OneNote? I raise my hand because I use it all the time. So there are a few of you. So technically that could be considered a fourth version when we look at kind of the functionality here. Really, the mobile app can be its own session. It has so many features and things that it can do outside of you know, what some of the desktop features and stuff can do. I find myself, when we talk about conferences, I find myself using the mobile version quite a bit, because if there's a slide or something I want to take a picture of, I actually use OneNote to do that. And there's some, really great reasons for why I do that with my mobile app. But is there anybody on here that uses Google Keep? Any?
Never even heard of it.
Really? Oh man.
I don't know how to make my little hand say yes that I have.
That's fine. Coming off mute and saying that you have, that works too. And then I see a couple of you that also use Google Keep. Well, if you don't know what Google Keep is, then of course it's irrelevant. But OneNote, mobile OneNote has actually made a couple of features in the last few months, a couple of updates that have really brought it to the next level when it comes to being competitive with Google Keep. Like when I open my OneNote now, kind of the board look that I was used to with Google Keep actually looks exactly the same in OneNote now. So I can get kind of that board look. If you're familiar with like a Trello and Planner and things like that, and you can see the board look, that's kind of the same concept almost. And so without saying a whole bunch, like I said, it can be its own session. If you don't currently use the mobile OneNote app, I highly recommend it, because it can definitely do quite a bit. What are some of the other note-taking apps that you guys use? And I mean, if you're not using the mobile OneNote, and some of you may have never heard of Google Keep, what are some other ones that you're using? Tamara, so which one do you use, the note-taking app on your phone?
I've tried to use it and it's not very successful for me. So yes, it's downloaded on my phone, but it's very difficult to use in that small space. Evernote is the other one that I always hear of as being the direct competitor. But again, I tried Evernote a bit and didn't like it. Didn't like the interface, didn't like what it did and didn't do. So right at this point, I have a personal OneNote and then I have a work OneNote account. So.
Gotcha.
And somewhere along the line, I figured out how to connect the two so I could see them both at the same time. I don't know if I could ever do that again, but we'll figure it out.
Yes. And if you only have two, I envy you, because I have many. But yes, I have the personal one and the professional one as well. What I do, just Tamara, like from a little tip on my phone, it is a very small space to take notes and things, but most of the time I just dictate. So I just talk and it types. And so
Okay.
I don't have to worry about, doing all of that kind of stuff. So it's really come in handy, like when I'm traveling to clients and stuff, and I've got, so many people come up with ideas in the shower. I come up with ideas on the road.
And I just use the Notes app in that is native to iPhones.
So I was going to tell you, if it wasn't an iPhone, if you have a Samsung phone, the default Samsung Notes. So Tamara, I'm sorry, this is not for you, but the default Samsung Notes actually is embedded inside OneNote. So I actually because I have a Samsung, so I do kind of the same thing, but then I can open my OneNote on my desktop and I can actually see my Samsung Notes. So for those of you that have Samsungs, you can still use that integrated Samsung Note on your phone, but then the next time you open your apps, you can actually see it. It's in your feed if you're not familiar with where that's at. So I don't know anything about iPhones, other Tamara, I would give you a tip on that. So maybe there's someone else on here that has more idea around iPhones. All right, so we're going to talk about a couple of tips when it comes to layout of your OneNote, search, because I think I've mentioned it a couple of times already. Search is a huge component. A huge fan of search myself. We're going to talk about some tags and some files. And you can see here that the OneNote, which remember is the old OneNote 2016, but now been revamped and no longer old. It's the new OneNote. All of these options here are available in that. And then with Windows 10, there are some things that are not available in what we're talking about. And then, of course, the browser, it's actually just a lighter version of just a OneNote in general. So you can see a lot of the features that we're going to be talking about today are missing from that browser version. And then in the one pager that you're going to get, I'm going to throw in a couple of features that are only available in the Windows 10 version for now. The caveat, the little asterisk for now. Okay. I'm not sharing anything other than, well, I'm sharing my PowerPoint. Are you guys still seeing that?
I am, Mickie.
Okay. Looks
I
like we
am.
got,
I am too.
okay. Gotcha. Okay, looks like maybe we had someone that's kind of an issue, but all right. So when we jump into it, the first thing that we're going to talk about is the layout. There's two components to layout. If you are, ready to move out of Windows 10 and into the OneNote version, but maybe you are used to that left-hand side navigation panel, you can actually go into options in your OneNote and change the location of your page from the right to the left. And because I did spend about 2 or so years in Windows 10, when this came out within Windows, or not Windows, but when it came out within OneNote, I actually took advantage of that. So all of my pages now are listed on the left-hand side because I went into File, Options, and then under Display, you'll see a little box that you check and click OK. And as you can see here on the screen, it just shifts them over there on the left-hand side. So if you never took the jump into Windows 10, this may not be even an issue for you. You may just be inherently used to. I remember when I took my journey from 2016 into Windows 10, it was definitely a shift for me getting used to, obviously my pages being on the wrong side because I was so used to them being on the right-hand side of OneNote. And of course, within Windows 10, they're now on the left. And so if you're making that transition to Windows 10, you can actually move those pages to the left if you want. And then from a second position of layout is that you can actually pin your notebooks. So within OneNote, you can click on your notebooks and you get a drop-down list of all of them, and navigate from one to the other, or even open them in a whole new window if you want to. So there's quite a few times when I'm doing certain things that I may have, 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 open at a time. But you can actually pin those notebooks. And if you don't want to navigate your way through multiple windows, this might be a better option for you, is to just pin those notebooks there onto the left-hand side. It also can help with moving pages or sections around from one notebook to another. If you find yourself doing that frequently, or maybe you're combining multiple notebooks or something along those lines. But you can pin it, and then of course at any point in time you can unpin it. So if you want it more screen to actually take your notes, you can do that as well. So a couple of layout options. It's available in OneNote as an option. Obviously, you can turn these features on or turn them off. In Windows, you can't pin notebooks. You only have to, open them one by one or have them open in different windows by just doing the drop-down menu. But your pages are on your left, but of course you can't change that either in Windows 10. You can't switch it to the right like you could in the OneNote. And then the browser is the same way. So these options are not available in the browser either. Right. Search. So search within OneNote. You can obviously search within OneNote for any word or words that you want to. What we're going to be talking about today is a phrased search. Okay. And what I mean by that is if I was, as you can see here on my screen, if I was searching for the words new cloud, the first responses or the first things that I'm going to be getting within OneNote is any instance of the word new and any instance of the word cloud. But in my phrased approach, I actually want to find the phrase new cloud. I want both of those words and I want them in that same order. And so within OneNote, you can actually put quotes around multiple words. And if you're familiar with search and all of the little nuances that search can do, whether it's through Google or whatever, some of those features can actually be used inside OneNote and its search capabilities as well. But phrase search I find the most often that I use. And so what that means, like I said before, if I were to search for the word new cloud without quotes, I'm going to find instances of where it finds, new cloud, new, just cloud, and things like that. So I want to narrow my search down so that I'm actually looking for both of those words in that order, and hopefully only getting one or two examples of where I actually have that word. As on the screen here, as you can see, there's actually only one instance, or one page I should say, where new cloud shows up once I put the quotes around those. And this phrase search actually works, just so you know, it works in OneNote, Windows 10, and in the browser. And I believe it even works in the mobile app. I don't know if I've ever searched phrase search in the mobile app, but might be something I'll need to try out. And next up on search is our tags. How many of you know what tags are and use them in OneNote? Is there anybody?
I use the to do. I
The
use
to-do tag. Okay.
I use the to do, and I do have others, but then it gets to be messy. So maybe what you're about to tell me will make them far more useful.
I hope so. This is actually one of those features. The second half of this is actually one of those features that I've been missing from Windows 10 when I made the jump. And so the fact that we're now allowed by Microsoft to go back to the older version where this was available is super helpful for me. And so you can actually search for tags within the search box of OneNote. And which means that if you've created custom tags or even out of the box tabs like Tamara with the to do or whatever, reminder, important, some of those other ones that are pretty frequently used, it's still using the phrase search though in Windows 10. So if you're in Windows 10 version and you're searching for a tag, if you start typing in the name of the tag, it should you should get a drop-down menu that's giving you a recommendation of, are you looking for just these words or are you actually looking for the tag? And it will have that little tag symbol in the drop-down menu. So you can just click on that. The functionality behind all of that though is it's just searching for the name of your tag in quotes. So it's a phrased search. And then in the OneNote version, it actually goes one step further. And this is the feature that was missing in Windows 10 that I actually loved. So yes, I can use the search box in the OneNote version and search for tags, just like I did in Windows 10 version. But and oh, by the way, it's not, tags is not available in the search in the browser, by the way. So you will have to have it open in the desktop versions, whichever desktop version you're using. But if you want to take your tag search functionality one step further, and Tamara, to your point, you want to make a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more organization around it, try under the home tag looking at the find tags option. This is a function that's only available in OneNote. It's not available in the Windows 10 version, but what it does is it opens a panel on the right-hand side and it actually lists all of the tags that you have, and you can define how much it's looking. So is it can only look at your search, in that section or in that notebook or across all your notebooks. Thanks, Joe, for putting that image in there. So under the home, Joe put an image of the find tags option. And so it opens the panel and you can further refine what it is that you're wanting to look for across, multiple places and across multiple tags, and then take it even one step further and create a summary page of those tags. And then you can even email that summary page out to your team or to anyone who didn't have access to that notebook. This has really been helpful from like a real life scenario, taking meeting notes. So more often than not, I'm sure most of us are on a meeting at least once a week, if not more. And we're taking notes on those meetings, right? And let's say that we're, yes, I love summary pages and I did miss them in my Windows 10 version. But we actually, on my team, we created custom tags, and each team member had their own tag. And so, there was a Mickey's tag and there was a Nate tag and, all that kind of stuff. And so every person on my team had their own specific tag, and we were in a shared notebook. It's like a team notebook that everyone had access to. And so we would each, take notes throughout the meeting. And so it was a collaborative effort on that. And then when action items were assigned to individuals, we would just use the tags to tag that note on that page. And then the summary page is what was really cool at the end. We kind of got this, if you're in project management role, and you're not using this feature, you're probably like, whoa, this is awesome. Because I know a lot of project managers that use this, but then it kind of gives you that roll up effect. So if you're like, sending the meeting minutes to everyone that either joined or wasn't able to join the meeting, they get this nice little, notes, but they also get the tags and the action items that have been assigned to each person. And they get a nice, searchable and email copy of that page. So just taking, if you're not familiar with tags, first off, I just want to say the tags could be its own webinar all in itself and what it can do for a team as well as for individuals. But just taking your tag, efforts to the next level is finding tags and creating summary pages with them. So hopefully that was something new for some of you that may not have used that feature before. Any questions on that?
I just want to add to that. I didn't think about the custom tags. That's a good one. We used to take the meeting notes and then just tag as we went along and then put the name of the person or whoever was on it in front of it. So when the summary page does it, it does it alphabetically. So you had it auto organize.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, custom tags is a good one too.
Yeah.
I'm doing that one next.
I was going to say, we didn't have to write it. I know it's, some of our names are so short, sometimes it doesn't really matter, but it's still saved to those seconds, of not having to type out the whole name. Each of us knew our keyboard shortcut for our own tag, and we just were able to quickly assign it. So, wherever you can save a second, they add up after the whole day is over. So, anyone else have any experience with tags or summary pages? Alrighty. Next up, still talking about tags, is, and this is another one of those features that I really missed, like truly missed in my Windows 10, is the Outlook tasks. There was actually a time where I had both versions on my computer, both versions of OneNote, and like, anybody else remember this or maybe know officially that the Outlook tasks within the OneNote 2016, it went away on my computer for a short amount of time, or maybe it stopped working. I don't know if that anybody else experienced it or not, but
it's when they switched. So when they re-architected the task framework, essentially what happened is as they were moving around those pieces, it probably blipped for a little while they were re-architecting.
I figured it was that. I just couldn't find any official article around like it stating that.
I remember it happening, and I remember what was happening at the time, and so yeah. I lined those two pieces up. That's my best guess. I'm not saying that's an official statement, but I know the timing was very, very correlated.
It was like right during the whole nitty gritty of all of that. So yeah, that's Sharon and I's best educated guess of what was happening. And I don't know if you guys understood what we were saying, is that for a while, Outlook tasks was what we were traditionally thought of as Outlook tasks, right? But then there was, then there was this transition where they actually turned Outlook tasks into to-do. So the to-do app, if you're unfamiliar with that, is its own separate app. And there's a great mobile app for it, by the way. But it is also what is now referred to as Outlook tasks. And so it's kind of a very much more robust task oriented type of application from a personal perspective. Like Planner still has its place when it comes to team and things like that. And there's tons of webinars out there comparing the two. And so definitely look that up if you're familiar with To Do and Planner. But so Outlook Tasks isn't now just all by itself in Outlook. It's actually the To Do app, and so there's a lot of integration with that. So during that time frame, I felt like I lost that functionality, as maybe some of you also experienced as well. But this functionality was actually never available inside Windows 10 version either, which is another one of this is something that I really missed, and actually kind of decided that I was not okay with it, but I would continue using Windows 10 because that's what Microsoft said at the time that they were moving towards. So, so I did without. But now it's back and it's in the OneNote version. It's still not in the Windows 10 version, and there's no, obviously there's no plan for that to happen at this point. But what it allows you to do, there's an Outlook tasks option as far as a tag is concerned. It's still considered a tag, but what happens is you have to have Outlook installed on your machine, by the way. I know that on a couple of my demo environments, I didn't have Outlook installed and set up and all that kind of stuff, and the Outlook tasks were grayed out. It wasn't available. So, because I've been working in Outlook in the web for 2 or 3 years now exclusively. So not all computers have Outlook installed on my end of things. So you do have to make sure that Outlook is installed and configured. And of course, the mailbox that's connected to your Word to Do and to your OneNote and all that stuff. But then you get your Outlook tasks, and you can flag items in OneNote with today, tomorrow, and a couple of other things. And what that does in the background, it'll take a while to kind of sync up, a few minutes maybe, but it goes through and then it creates in To Do a task under your task items for you. And of course, you can see those tasks in Outlook as well. And then from your To Do app, you can actually do quite a bit of things. You can flag them as what you want to accomplish that day. You can flag them as important. You can put an actual reminder around that so that it gives you a notification, some type of banner or email. You can put more notes and all of those kind of things. So it's a pretty powerful little tag because of the integration that's built into it. Now, I mean, I'm sure there's a couple of us on the call that we could probably build a, Power Automate flow around all of this if we wanted to. But the good thing is that it's actually already built in, so it's less development for all of us. And it's just kind of intuitively there within OneNote. But again, it's only in the OneNote version, not the Windows 10 version. Does anybody use the Outlook tasks in OneNote? Some of you. Anybody on here use the To Do app?
All day long.
I'm not even sure where the To Do app is.
Oh,
how
my
would
gosh.
you live without it?
That hurts my heart.
I've been in Teams. I can't find to-dos. If I need to go, the only reason I use anything in Microsoft Outlook in the way of tasks is I'll right click and flag it, which turns it a different color so that hopefully, but I've got now hundreds of those little red flags saying you should have dealt with this already, right? And by the time I come back around to it, it was an email that resolved itself, so I have no idea how to use that functionality.
Oh
I
man,
feel like there's something I'm missing out on, but I don't have any idea how to take advantage of that.
yeah. There's well, yeah. So Sharon posted a link to how you can open To Do from the app launcher.
Tamara, you're gonna
It's
love it.
yeah. It's when I think about how often I open OneNote, I probably open my To Do, if not more often than OneNote. So I love it. But all those flagged emails, you'll actually see them all listed in your To Do once you get it open. Because there's a section for flagged emails in the To Do. So it is your Outlook tasks. But if you're, not using Outlook that way, if you've never gone into the Outlook tasks, then there is an app inside Teams too. So there's an app and it's called, because it's not a simple title. Wow, totally lost what the name of that's called. Tasks by Planner and To Do.
Yeah, it's a combination of your planner and your To Do.
Yes, thank you. I just use it. I haven't looked at the title for so long, but it's so if you go in your Teams, if you're using Teams, you can go over there on a personal side and add it to your Teams, and it's called Tasks by Planner and To Do, and it does exactly what Sarah was saying. It combines both To Do, which Tamara sounds like you'll have a lot of flagged emails listed in there.
Job
but
number
also your planner.
1, eliminate all the old stuff.
Right, clean up To Do, make a task for that.
Yeah, I'll add for that to my to-do list for Christmas week
Right,
when nobody's in the office.
exactly. But yeah, so this is another one of those integrated ones. This is just a tag that's available on OneNote, but it creates, and then of course you can build on that by creating a bunch of reminders and things like that. So, all right. Any other questions around this feature? Then our last one that we'll be able to get through here pretty easily is the embed files. So when we look at Windows 10 and we look at OneNote, you can attach a file and you can link to a file, and you can actually even do a printout of a file. I don't know if any of you guys have done that before. And all of that's available in all the versions, OneNote and Windows 10, and even on the browser for that matter. The printout can be helpful. Sometimes I've done a printout of a file and then I've set it as a background, because then my team can come in and, mark it up and do all that kind of stuff. It's not like track changes in Word, but if it's a PDF or a flyer or something more visual that you need to collaborate on, you may try to insert a printout of that, set it to the background, and then you can mark it up in OneNote, kind of get to a final draft or whatever. But what we're talking about today is embedding a file. So you can actually embed files into OneNote, and this is not available in Windows 10. So if you embed like Excel or even Visio, I don't know if you guys realize or not, but Visio is now a part of the Microsoft 365, so you actually have access to it as part of your subscription. But you can embed, like I have here on the screen, you can embed an Excel file, and then you can actually go in and you can edit that Excel file, and it will open in the desktop version of Excel. Like you're not going to be actually like editing the file on the OneNote page, but you can see here it pops open a window in Excel, you make your changes, and then you just, because autosave is already turned on, you don't even have to click save if you don't want to, just close it out. And then your OneNote page will actually refresh and to reflect those new changes. So if this is a shared notebook, for instance, you can, collaborate with a team on all of this. But if your file's saved in SharePoint, I'm not sure why you would need to do that. But if you're using OneNote to collaborate on things or to, work through a draft or something along those lines, or a Visio, which is pretty cool, then you can embed a Visio file as well, and you can edit. And again, it's going to open the browser-based version of Visio. You're not going to be, editing it inside OneNote, but anytime you make changes and you save those, that'll be reflected back into the OneNote. So, anybody done this yet? Yeah, Jonathan, if you look at your app launcher, when you go to office.com, if you look at your app launcher, Visio should be listed there, by the way. Not like a full-blown Visio license, but definitely enough. So there's a couple of you that raise your hand.
It's usually enough to demonstrate or to
Yeah.
walk someone through a process if the person who knows how to use Visio properly is actually navigating. So
Right. I guess that for me, because we no longer, it does what I would need it to do, diagrams and documentation for processes and things like that.
right.
So. Yes. So Kent, you are true. If you're still using an on-prem SharePoint and that's where your OneNote files are stored, that could cause some delays in your sync. All right. Well, it's right between to do. Yeah. There's the to-do app, Tamara, in the picture that Jonathan, that's the app launcher. There's the to-do app and right below it's Visio. So
Very nice.
Wunderlist. Did you ever use Wunderlist back in the day or ever heard of that?
A long time ago.
That's actually what Microsoft gobbled up and made to do from is the Wunderlist app back in the day. Download from Keep Null. You could copy and paste the text from one to the other if you've got them up side by side. But yeah, as far as I know, Keep, there's no download option. Oops. And that concludes the topics that I knew that I would probably be able to cover in this short amount of time.